Hi guys, welcome to accounting. Today we're going to be taking a next step and be learning how to post from the general journal into the general ledger. We're going to be using AAA Law Service as our transactions for the day. So before we begin, I want to read the instructions to you. You've been given the chart of accounts for AAA Law Service along with the list of transactions for April. Your task today is to record the transactions in the general journal, then post them to the general ledger. So the first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to record the April transactions for AAA Law Service in the general journal. And here is the link to the general journal. Then, once you have recorded all of the transactions, you're going to be posting these transactions from the general journal into the general ledger. And here is a link to the general ledger. And you are going to be uploading both of these, the journal and the ledger, when you are finished. Below is a chart of accounts plus a list of transactions. And I want to go over this. I know we had talked about a chart of accounts before, but let's talk about what a chart of accounts is. It is basically just a listing of accounts, and they are broken out into assets, liabilities, owner's equity, revenue, and expenses. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking each of these accounts and we're going to be using the account numbers. Now remember, assets were listed as 100s, liabilities is 200s, owner's equity 300, revenue 400, and expenses 500. And you see that each of the accounts has been assigned a number already. And there are gaps between the numbers, and that's just in case you ever need to assign more accounts. You have room to keep them in numerical order. So here's the list of the chart of accounts that we will be using, and then here are the transactions that we are going to be putting into the journal first. So let's start on it. The first thing is we're going to come up here and you're going to click a link to the general journal. And this is where it's going to bring you to here. The first thing, and I'm going to be reading the transactions so we don't have to flip back and forth. But a new thing that we are going to do today is we're going to assign a page number to our journal. We're going to make this page number 1. And now we're going to be starting on the transactions. And the first transaction is Aubrey deposited $10,000 to open her business. And that took place on April the 1st. So I'm going to say April the 1st, and I'm going to say that took place in 2020. So I'm going to say 20. Now the first thing we need to do is we're going to debit, because remember we record our debits first. And we are going to debit cash, and we are going to credit Aubrey's capital. So cash is our debit, and we're going to do a posting reference that's going to be a little bit different today. We're going to go back to our chart of accounts. Now here is the transaction that we're working on. Aubrey deposited $10,000 to open her business. Well, now you're going to come back to look at the accounts. We're going to debit cash. We're going to credit Aubrey's capital. But today we need these account numbers as well because we're going to be recording those in the journal. So 110 is cash and 310 is Aubrey's capital. So let's take a look at that. Our posting reference is going to be the account number. So cash was 110 and then the debit was $10,000. and then we're going to credit Aubrey's Capital, and that was the name of the account, and the account number was 310. So we're going to credit Aubrey's Capital to 310. We don't need to put the date here because it's the same date. And I'm going to correct my spelling error. Now the next thing we do is we put a description for the transaction. Made deposit to open business. Okay, so we're going to do that, and then I'm going to show you how to post this into the general ledger. Now, our general ledger, when you click on the link, you're going to see this. I've done cash already for you, but you're going to be going through here and assigning account names and account numbers to each of the accounts in the ledger. And you're going to be setting up, there will be one ledger account for each of the accounts in the chart of accounts. So let's do that. Okay, the first one I have done for you in creating accounts for the ledger. I entered cash and I gave it the account number 110. This is coming from our chart of accounts back here. You see there's cash and 110. So then you will start with accounts receivable, and you will just go straight through here and you will assign a name and a number to each of the ledger accounts. You see I've done the first one here for you. The next one will be accounts receivable. And the account number for accounts receivable is 120. So you see, you're just going to go through here and label them like that. Okay, so let's continue on. Let's go back and look at our general journal. We made the entry, Aubrey invested $10,000 in her business, so we debited cash and we credited Aubrey's Capital. The new thing with General Journal is we are adding account numbers here based on the numbers from the chart of accounts, and we also labeled this page, page 1. Now, if your transactions go on to another page, you're going to make it page 2, and you'll see why in just a moment. So let's go to the ledger, and we are going to post to the ledger based on your journal entry. So the first one is we debited cash, so we're going to make an entry into cash. And we can say invested, in business. And our account title here is, we are putting the explanation here so we know what happened. Our posting reference is going to be GJ1, and that stands for General Journal, page 1. That's why back here we gave this a page number, because that's how we're going to find it. If we ever need to look at this account, we can go back to the journal and we can see both parts of the entry here. Right now you're just seeing, when you look at the ledger, you're only going to see the transactions that impacted cash. So our entry was, we made a debit, a $10,000 debit to cash, and notice we have general and we have a debit and credit column, and then we have balance and debit and credit. These two columns here, this is a running balance of your amount in your account. So we made a debit to cash. So right now it has a $10,000 balance. All right, now that's half of this entry. There's the debit. Now we have to record the credit entry. So let's go back to the general journal, and we're going to go down to our capital. Okay, we're going to put the date. We're going to say invested in business. Okay, our posting reference again is GJ1, because if we ever have a question about this, we want to be able to go back to wherever it was in the general journal to see the complete transaction. Now this one for Aubrey's Capital, we made a credit entry. So we're going to credit $10,000. And again, we're going to have a running balance here. Since this is our first entry, we're going to have a $10,000 credit balance. Okay? And then you are just going to go through, going back to our transactions, and you will record each of these transactions in, they will be recorded in the general journal as usual. And then after you do that, the only thing different with the general journal today is you are putting posting reference numbers, and that comes from the numbers in the chart of account for each of these accounts. You're also going to be numbering your journal pages. Then after you're finished, you can either finish all of your transactions and then post them, or you can post them to the ledger one at a time, whatever works best for you. You'll go to the ledger, and then you're going to be entering the names and the numbers of each of the accounts. I've done a couple for you. I've done cash and the account number. Remember, this comes from the chart of accounts. And then you see I've done the second one, accounts receivable, account 120. Okay, then after that you're going to record posting from the journal to the ledger. Now your ledger, each account has its own ledger page. You will only put that, what pertains to that account, on that ledger. You notice we only did the cash, that we only did the debit to cash, because this is the only account that we're working with on the ledger right now. Then when you do the other part of the account of the transaction, you'll go down to the ledger page for Aubrey's Capital. And then you will put the credit side of the entry in the ledger page for Aubrey's Capital account. You only put the half of the ledger of the entry that pertains to that account. That's why it's important to put posting references, and that's why it's important to put your transaction description here so you know what the transaction was. And also to remind you, since you have two parts of the assignment today, you are going to be uploading both parts of these as file uploads when you submit your assignment. You don't upload both of them together. You don't upload one without the other. So make sure you do them both together.